welcome to the Better Beyond 50 Summit. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with me today.
Not a problem. Pleasure to be here.
We're going to talk about arthritis, what it is, how does it develop, what are some natural ways that we can alleviate it, lots of misconception about it. I know the majority of the women in the Better Beyond 50 community are dealing with the signs of arthritis, and they want natural ways to approach it. They don't want to have to rely on medication. So I'm hoping that anyone listening is going to leave with a simple plan of action to feel better.
Well, the question is always when people hear what they have to do and what things that nobody ever was exposed to or ate or et cetera, and that they're also going to have to make go away, whether they're willing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It comes down to how willing you are to change. But we're gonna give people a simple plan, so we're gonna leave it up to them. Let's talk about first of all, what is arthritis? There are different kinds of arthritis. So can you talk about those different kinds and how are they different from one another?
Well, yeah, there are lots of different kinds of arthritis. The standard two that everybody talks about are rheumatoid and osteo. But anything having to do with the joints and pain, and for that matter, even non-joints and pain. Fibromyalgia is classified for rheumatologists, and polymyalgia, and they're basically labels.
Okay.
And I actually use the labels a lot less. So somebody will call me up and they'll say, do you treat arthritis? And I'll say, sure. And they'll say, well, but do you treat, and then they fill in the blank. Do you treat fibromyalgia? Do you treat rheumatoid arthritis? Do you treat osteoarthritis? Do you treat polyrheumatic? It doesn't make any difference. There are all these different names. And interestingly enough, although people shouldn't be so surprised, 5 people can be exposed to the same thing and develop 5 different symptoms. So, for example, if you had, let's pick a really well-known allergen, or even a few well-known allergens, soy, wheat, and pasteurized dairy. You could have a bunch of people that all react to those foods, or one of them, or 2 of them, or 3 of them, and with one individual or a bunch of individuals, they get headaches. And the other person says, really? That's interesting. When I get exposed to that food, I get a pain in my right knee. And the person says, gee, a headache and a pain in the right knee. I can't think straight. Somebody else says it makes me tired. Somebody else says it makes me hyper. And it's all being done by the same thing, because how your body is going to react to something that it doesn't like, for lack of a better way of putting it, is a complete unknown. And we don't have any way to test how your body is reacting to something. And so when somebody says, well, how will I know if it's one of the things you're talking about, David, that I should remove? And the answer is that the only really accurate way, which has been called the gold standard in medicine, not holistic medicine, but regular medicine for a long time, is called elimination provocation. And that's when somebody is taught how long they have to remove a substance to make sure it really is cleared out of their body, and see if they think they feel a difference. And then, since sometimes you don't feel differences when something slowly gets better, but you feel them when, bam, they come back, you then provoke and bring it back again. And sometimes somebody says, yeah, I didn't think it was causing me a problem, and I wasn't sure I was really getting any better when I removed it, but oh my, when I brought it back in, I realized, oh yeah, I had been better. So one thing is to just remove the possible things we're going to discuss. And I don't like to use the labels, because somebody will say, well, but my doctor said that couldn't be true for my type of arthritis. Nonsense. This can be true for anything of any pain anywhere in the body. Actually, there's a Dr. Sherry Rogers in upstate New York. She wrote a book entitled, I think, Pain Free in 6 Weeks. And her book is about a specific class of foods which can be causing arthritis. So, we'll mention them. They're called nightshades. And the nightshade family of vegetables includes potatoes, peppers, eggplant, tomatoes, tobacco. I mean, you can look up nightshades online, you'll get a complete list. But that's one of the groups of foods that can be causing pain syndromes with all sorts of different names. And so rather than explaining to people what the medical difference is between rheumatoid arthritis and osteoarthritis and a number of the others, you're better off if you just forget that they've given your condition a name. Don't name your condition. Forget about the name. And the question is, can you learn something today that will give you the tools to change a couple of the things that are coming into or attacking your body, and see whether you're one of the people in the very large group, by the way, that will go, wow, I feel better when I don't do this, or don't eat this, or eliminate that, or take this supplement. And so instead of giving you the instruction that you asked for, I'm going to say, forget about the names and let's go into the causes.
Yeah, we're going to dig into the elimination piece in a minute, because I think that's important. Let's kind of go back to what you were just talking about, the causes. You say mainstream medicine doesn't really know the cause. Does anyone truly know the cause of arthritis?
Well, everybody will be able to understand this as soon as I say the words. The only way you will ever know the cause of something is if, through experimentation, you eliminate the cause without realizing that that was what you were eliminating, and the symptoms go away.
Right. Okay.
So if one person stops eating all forms of wheat, and within 2 months their pain drops down by 50% and continues to go down, and they don't quite believe it, of course. So they go, well, but I miss wheat. I like pizza, and I like crackers and cookies and cakes, and so they bring it back in again. And it all comes back again, and they go, and they bring it back out again, and it slowly starts going away. They have just identified one of their causes. If somebody else does the same thing and notices no improvement of any kind, and they go, well, I guess that wasn't it. All right, let's see, what were some of those other things? We've got nightshades, we've got sugar, we've got aspartame, we've got a bunch of things we'll discuss, and they pick one of the others and make that one go away, and it starts to go away. They'll say, oh, but I love that thing. And they bring it back, and it comes back, and they eliminate it, and it starts going away again. They've identified that cause. So we can actually do, and we can talk about them, some fairly comprehensive reactivity tests. I don't use the word allergy because the medical profession has absconded with that word. They have decided, and if you look it up in a medical dictionary, that an allergy is when the body has a immunoglobulin E histamine type reaction to a substance. And so if you can tell that when you take something, your nose gets stuffed up, or your eyes get inflamed, or your nose gets runny, that's a histamine type reaction. That's a standard allergy. And so if somebody says, well, but no, doc, when I eat this food, I can't think straight. Or when I get this food, I get very tired. Or when I eat this food, I get hyperactive. Or when I eat this food, any number of other possible things happen. The doctor will, if they're really open-minded, say, well, I guess you should avoid it then. At least that's being a fair, question-answer person. But very often they'll go, well, that's not an allergy. So maybe something happened to you when you were a child and you saw somebody get hurt when they were exposed to that food, and maybe you need to go see a psychiatrist to get rid of that issue, because it's not really being caused by that food, when of course it probably is. So there are a lot of tests that we can do, and I can give people the labs that I trust, and they can have those tests run by their doctors. But the test will never show what your reactivity is. So for example, if somebody runs a test on one of my favorite labs, tests 500 different substances, and it comes back that maybe 20 different things it shows your body's cells are reacting to, you won't know, well, let's see, this one is doing this, and this one is doing this. All you know is that they can tell with their equipment, microscopy or whatever, that the cells of your body are reacting to it in a way they shouldn't be reacting to something, and therefore it's inappropriate, and therefore your body would be happy without it. And so if you cut all those things out, you will be healthier. But which particular one or ones might be causing what you are trying to get rid of, you'd have to experiment with that yourself, with elimination provocation. And the problem is that there's a doctor that put this very, very well many years ago. He calls it the 2-tack rule. And I could call it a multi-tack rule. If you're sitting on a bunch of tacks, and it hurts like hell, and you remove one of those tacks, you might not even know a difference, because it still hurts like hell. And so a lot of people will very badly want to. I get this from my medical doctor patients, from my nurse patients, and from my engineer patients, because they want to know, what is it? Point to it. Show me which one it is. And so they'll pull one thing out, and they don't see a difference. They'll bring that back in, put another thing out, and they won't see a difference. And they don't understand that if your body is reacting to, we'll make an example, 5 different foods, and you remove one of them, the reactivity to the other 4, or maybe the other 1 or 2, is still so severe, you don't see a benefit.
Yeah.
You have to pull everything out that you might be reacting to. And if you see a big improvement, wow, okay, we got it. Now we can bring them in one at a time, maybe one every couple weeks. And if it doesn't cause a problem, leave it there. But you can't bring them out one at a time, or you may never find your problem.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I see that a lot with the clients that I work with. They're like, oh, I took out gluten. I'm like, but there are other potential foods that you're responding to. So we've got to kind of address all of them. We got to take them all out. You've got to take them all out, and you've got to sort of create that, get your body clean and then kind of add them back in. But yeah, we're going to dig into that in a minute because that's so important. So you're saying that diet is important. Making dietary changes can be huge in getting relief from arthritis. But what if someone says, well, I can just take an over-the-counter drug, or I can just take, a drug that my doctor prescribes me. Why not just take a prescription or a drug, right? I mean, that's sort of our culture, symptom drug. So you tell me what's a better alternative? I mean, why make changes with my diet? Why change my lifestyle when I can just take something for it?
Well, the best example of that was given a long, long time ago, and lots of us use it, although, there are probably many other examples, and that is the idiot light on your car. So you're driving down the highway, and the light comes on that says that you are maybe about to overheat or low on oil or whatever it is. And so you go, okay, well, that means I have to do something. So you pull off the highway, and you go into the first service station, and you say, would you please fix this? My light is on. And the mechanic sticks his head in, and he says, yeah, the light is on that says, and he repeats whatever that particular light is saying. And you say, yeah, I don't want that light on. And so he says, no problem. And he sticks his head under your dashboard, disconnects the wire that goes to that light. And of course, the light no longer has any power, and the light goes off. And he looks at you and he says, okay, that'll be $15. Oh, the light is off. And if you're not a fool, you will look at him and say, but didn't that light mean that there was a problem, and it was just letting me know there was a problem, and the problem is still there? And the mechanic says, well, yeah, but you said you wanted the light off. So I turned the light off. And that's what drugs do. Drugs turn the light off.
Yeah.
A symptom is always, and remember this, a symptom is always your body's only method of letting you know something is not working correctly. And if you remove the symptom, so the symptom is a pain. So you take a painkiller, you disconnected the light switch, or maybe you broke the light with a hammer, you disconnected it. You have not addressed that your body is having a reaction that is inappropriate, unhealthy, and I can't tell you because there are so many variables, but it could be that turning off the indicator, but leaving the reason for it remaining, is going to make it so that over the next 10 years or 15 years or 2 years or whatever, one person's going to get cancer because their body's reacting to something, and you're leaving the reaction there but stopping you from being able to see it's there. Somebody else maybe will get multiple sclerosis or Alzheimer's, AL, or any number of things. But basically what you're doing is something is not occurring correctly. Your body is smart enough to raise its hand and say, something's not happening correctly, please address it. And you have chosen to address it by making it so you can't tell it's happening with a drug.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I use that a lot with my clients, and I learned it from Paul Chek, and I wonder if he actually heard it from you. And
Could be, so many of us have used it. Who knows where anybody got it from?
It's so great. I love that. I love it. It's so true. Let's talk a little bit about supplements. Are there certain supplements that someone can take? I mean, we're going to kind of get into the dietary piece in a minute because diet's important. But in addition to diet, is it important to take supplements? And if so, which are some of the ones that you recommend to your patients? What have you found to be, really helpful?
Well, supplements are important in 2 different areas, or actually more than 2 different areas, but we'll touch on 2. One is that if you have deficiencies of less than your body needs of specific nutrients, then possibly it can't heal something that it would like to be able to heal, but it isn't able to. And so I have my basic, handful of supplements, which is not there to treat anything, is not there to help you with a symptom. It is just there, like all of the nails and screws and wood and shingles and tiles and wiring and plumbing are there for the general contractor, so that if he needs something or she needs something, it's sitting there waiting for them. And those basic ones are a good quality multivitamin, multimineral supplement that gets taken with breakfast and dinner, because once a day won't keep your body all day. So good type twice a day multi. And then because they never put enough in the multi of specific things that I want to make sure there's enough of, I always add extra A, C, D, E, and some form of fish oil. So those are my basic 6: A, C, D, E, fish oil, and a multi. And then the body's got what it needs to be able to do what it wants. Assuming all of those are there, and the body isn't reacting to something because of a deficiency, the next category would be substances that you're taking not because you're low on something. Of course, if your gas tank is low, you obviously have to put some gas in your tank. But in addition to that, if the carburetor's out of adjustment, that's a very specific thing. That's not just getting somewhere. That's something is low in a different area. And so we have quite a number of supplements that have been shown to be very helpful in a couple of different ways, but most often because they're anti-inflammatory or because they rebuild joint tissue for a lot of different joint arthritic conditions. Some people call me an ogre, but a nice ogre, because they understand the reason. Because if somebody comes to me with arthritis and they say, let me have whatever supplements you think are going to help, let's give that a try, and maybe I'll change some stuff in my diet, I won't work with them. Because I want the cause. Because if I don't get at the cause, maybe they're going to come back to me with some much worse disease that they never would have gotten if we'd identified their body was being triggered by something when they first came in with arthritis. So I require people to go on a super healthy diet for 60 days. And after the 60 days, now we can address supplements specifically for arthritis. I'll let them take those 6 basic ones because that's part of a super healthy diet. We don't want any deficiencies. But they have to do the super healthy diet, which of course is on my website. It says 30-day super healthy diet, but you have to make it 60 days because it takes that long to clear some of the foods that you react to out of your body. And I'm really strict. I say, if you're going to follow that diet 80 or 85% or 90 or 95%, don't bother. Because in the same thing with the tax, we're going to take out all, you got 25 tacks sticking in you, we're going to take out all but 2. It still hurts like hell. And maybe you didn't even realize that the others were removed. So you have to do it 100%. You even have to learn where some of the foods that I want taken out might be hiding, so that somebody doesn't tell me that I have eaten 0 wheat for 60 days and I still feel as bad. And when I say, have you eaten in an Asian restaurant during that amount of time? They say, oh yeah, I've had Chinese food, Japanese food, Korean food. And did you tell them you're allergic to soy sauce? No. Then you've had wheat every single time because there's wheat in all the regular soy sauces. So you have to teach them where all these things that they're trying to remove for you are, so that they can be 100% perfect for 2 months. And then at the end of the 2 months, you get a number of different possibilities. You get people that go, oh my, I don't have any pain in my body anymore. My goodness. How come my 2 regular doctors and my rheumatologist didn't ask me to do this? Because they weren't trained in this. They don't know anything about it. And so, first you want to do all that. Then, after somebody's done that, we can bring in a bunch of supplements. And if you'd like to talk about the supplements first, I will be happy to do that.
Yeah, so you're saying you like to get someone's diet on track. They can take the 6 basic with that. Once they've built that foundation, then you move on to a more specific supplement protocol, right?
That is exactly correct. And I have make sure people. I don't have people cut out the nightshades that we mentioned for a second in this beginning, because it's really, really, they're cutting out so many things already that if you add that they're also cutting out all tomatoes and all peppers. Eggplant, people don't eat that often, so that's okay, but tomatoes are in everything.
Yeah.
And peppers are used as a seasoning and everything. So I don't cut them out in the beginning because I find that less likely to be their problem, although sometimes it is. But all the other things we cut out, which we can go over if you wish, those all have to go out. And basically those are what I call my sabotage foods. Sabotage foods are any food that sabotages your body's ability for long-term health and that sabotages your body's ability to hold your blood sugar level. And so sabotage foods are three big categories: starches, sugars, and alcohols. And so if I understand, if I teach somebody well enough so that they understand what I mean by starches and sugars, then we don't have to be more specific, because I don't have to say beans have to go out, grains have to go out, because of course they're all 75% starch, so they're gone anyway. But I usually do have to go over those things and explain to somebody that rice is gone, and millet and quinoa and wheat and oats and all those things that they may or may not think are healthy or not healthy. They're gone both because they may be a reactive food and because they are mostly starch and convert to sugar, which makes them a reactive food.
So starches, like things like corn, potatoes, winter squashes, grains, beans, those are sort of the big starches. Can you just elaborate? I think most people probably know what alcohol is, but what about like sugar? Like some people think that like honey's good, or maple syrup is good, or coconut sugar. Like those are, where do those ones fall?
What I usually do is I tell you, if you want to do it easy and right, easy not meaning that it's easy for you to do, but that it's easy for you to understand, that for those 60 days, no starch, which, like you said, winter squash, every form of potato, spaghetti squash, of course, is a winter squash, but every single form of potato, all the winter squashes, and corn, and of course, all the grains and all the beans. And if somebody says, well, but quinoa isn't a grain, it's a seed. Yeah, we're going to call it a grain because it's still 60 to 80% squash. So, right, all of those get pulled out. And if I simply say for the sugars category, and for this 60 days, everything that tastes sweet. If I put it that way, they can't get it wrong. Because when somebody says, well, you don't mean fresh raw fruit, do you? And I go, well, I don't know. Does it taste sweet? And they go, well, of course. I said, didn't I say everything that tastes sweet? So if we do it the easy way, it's everything that tastes sweet. But if somebody says, I have too much of a sweet tooth, I'm not going to be able to do this if I cut out everything that tastes sweet. Aren't there any sweets I can eat, please, that are okay? Then I will give them the short list of the sweets that don't cause a blood sugar dysregulation. And those would be stevia, which is usually mispronounced stevia, yacon, which I've heard all sorts of pronunciations for, yacon syrup, lohan, which is also the extract of the monk fruit in China, and the sugar alcohols, so erythritol, xylitol, or a combination of a couple of those together. One of the better ones is called Lakanto, Lakanto. That's a non-GMO erythritol with lohan added to it. That's a very nice sweetener with a 1-to-1 ratio. So if somebody's cooking something that calls for 4 teaspoons or 4 tablespoons or whatever of sugar, they can put in the same amount of that. The problem is if they're cooking a regular substance that asks for a lot of sugar, it's probably something they're baking, and therefore it has a grain in it, so they can't eat it anyway. But if they're looking at the almond flour cookbook from Alana Amsterdam, which uses only almond flour, then they can use that, or they can use yacon, but they can't use what she has in her book, which is agave nectar, which is 54% fructose, which is sugar again. So all the regular sugars would be out. The sugar alcohols, if they don't cause loose stool in you or gas or bloating, would be acceptable. If they do cause that, your body, that's a symptom. Your body's saying, don't eat this, yeah. So you have to cut them out. And again, the acceptable ones are stevia, yacon, lohan. Pretty much those are the main ones, and for some people, the sugar alcohols.
What does someone do? Like let's say they go on your 60-day plan, and like a week or two in, I don't know, it's somebody's birthday. There's always something, right? They go on vacation.
There is always something,
and they deviate a little bit, because I see this with my clients too. So they deviate one meal, or maybe it's an entire day.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. All they do is start all over again.
Just okay, but then do they sort of lose that whole week? So it's like, okay, now I have to start the 60 days over again. How does that work?
Yes, and the reason they lose the whole week is very simple. It has been shown over and over again, although different people are different. Thankfully, we're all different. I don't want to look like you, and I don't want to look like my cats. We're all supposed to be different. That's what makes life interesting. But other than the fact that we're all different, it takes, in many, many, many people, 6 or 7 weeks to clear wheat out of your body. And one of the big assaultive issues that can be causing this is wheat. And that wheat could be one half of a crouton that the server forgot to not put on your salad. And as you're eating it and you taste the crunch and you go, oh, there's a crouton in my salad. Yes, you have to start all over again because it's going to take another 6 weeks for that to clear out of your body. And I want it to clear and 2 weeks without it in your body so that your body can start to heal, so you're likely to see a difference. So yes, if you have a little tiny piece of something, especially if it's wheat, that's the big one. If you had a sip of alcohol for toasting somebody at a wedding, I would not say start all over again. If you had any amount of any form of wheat, you have to start counting all over again.
Okay. So let's talk more about the supplement piece. So we've got the diet down. We're taking those, 6 basic supplements you talked about before. How does someone then know they need to go take it a step further and say, okay, I need these additional supplements?
Okay, well, somebody eats really, really well. And I'm not going to say they haven't noticed a difference and now they want to take something else, because I haven't ever seen that.
Right. Okay.
I've never seen anybody that hasn't noticed an improvement in their health and the way they feel with 2 months of eating super, super well. So they've got some benefit, and they've decided that the benefit is not sufficient to what they want. Or even more likely, which is too bad, but that's human nature, they've decided they love the benefit and they can't keep eating this way because they're addicted. And that's the reason. People need to understand that. You are addicted to something which you have now learned your body hates, wishes you would stop eating, and you are unable to stop. And that's an addiction. That is an addiction. Yeah. Addiction is defined as something that you can't not eat, and that you feel better when you stop.
Yes.
So you've got an addiction.
Yeah.
So the question is, what other things can we do in the way of supplements? And we're going to go over that, but first I want to mention one more thing, and that is to remember that it took your body however many old years you currently are. So if somebody finally decides to start doing this and they're currently 38 or 42 or 65 or 75, I mean, I get people that come into me the first time I meet them, they're 89, and they go, well, all right, so I ate perfectly for 2 months. I feel a lot better. I mean, this is really nice. I feel a lot better. Now, if we bring in some supplements, is that going to make a big difference? It might, and we're about to talk about them. However, remember, your joints have been degrading from the introduction and the utilization and the exposure in most people daily, but maybe if it's something you only eat once a week, weekly, for all those decades. Right. Do you really think that after stopping them for a month, that's as much benefit and healing as your body's going to get from not being exposed to them anymore?
Right.
So remember that if you just said, okay, my pain is down 45%, I'm going to stick to this for another 30 days and see what happens. And if at the end of the next 30 days you don't notice a difference, which is possible but unlikely, then you can say, all right, I definitely want to bring the supplements in. But if at the end of the next 30 days you go, darn, the pain is down another 25%. My body is starting to heal what it couldn't heal before because I was triggering it every day. Let's hold off on the supplements. That's more money. Let's hold off on the supplements and do another couple months of this. And I just want people to understand that that's something that's worthwhile, because then you know how much of the healing is being done by your own body. But as far as the supplements, there are a couple different ways that gets addressed, because some of the supplements are simply anti-inflammatory. And everybody that has arthritis, unless they don't speak a language and don't understand anything and have never heard anything that their doctor said, will understand that some of the drugs that they're taking, or that they've been prescribed, maybe decided not to take, and they're going to do this first, are helping the pain, not because they're painkillers, but because they're anti-inflammatories. And most of our painkillers, unless it's something that blocks a nerve, are actually classified as NSAIDs, NSAIDs, which stands for non-steroidal, NS, anti-inflammatory drugs, AIDS. That's what NSAIDs are. So that includes Tylenol and ibuprofen and aspirin and all these different things. They're actually anti-inflammatories. So the strongest, easily obtainable, totally non-toxic anti-inflammatory is fish oil. And so when you bring in a tablespoon of fish oil, although your body needs it for many different things, although it is helping other nutrients get into your body because it makes your cell walls more permeable. Just doing a lot of different things. One of the things it's doing is it's acting as an anti-inflammatory. So it's taking the place of a small amount of something that would otherwise be a drug, but it's not a drug. And because of that, there were some research studies done where they took a number of people that were on various different anti-inflammatory drugs for arthritis. And as an experiment, for some studies 30 days, some studies 60 days, they gave them a double or triple dose of what they might otherwise get from fish oil. So if somebody was taking, let's say, a tablespoon a day of, my favorite brand is Carlson. So they're taking a tablespoon a day of Carlson's lemon-flavored fish oil or lemon-flavored cod liver oil, and they doubled it to a tablespoon 3 times a day. And a large number of those people were able to completely discontinue their drugs because the additional anti-inflammatory effect of the fish oil, which is also doing good things, actually dropped the amount as much as they needed it to be dropped. And so sometimes that's all that's necessary. I don't want people to drink a cup of fish oil a day. That might even thin your blood a little bit too much. But otherwise, it's not really doing that. It's normalizing your blood. And so sometimes it's an anti-inflammatory. So there are a lot of things. Boswellia serrata is an herb that's been used in Ayurvedic, which is the traditional medicine of India, for thousands of years. Boswellia is an anti-inflammatory. Fish oil is an anti-inflammatory. I mean, there are a lot of things that's the way they work. They're anti-inflammatories. So that's one classification of substances that can be used natural or drug-like. A second are the substances that have been shown to help with arthritis, in many cases demonstrably, and they're not totally sure how they're working, just like drugs. And doctors seem to think that, well, you don't even know how that herb is working. And I refer the doctor to take out his book or her book. It's gigantic. It's called the PDR, the Physician's Desk Reference. And I say, open that multi-thousand page book to any page you want. Go to page 285. I don't care. And from that point on, look at the next 45 drugs. And for each drug, I only want you to go to the area that says mode of action. And then I want you to be summarily surprised when you see how many of them say unknown. Mm-hmm. So large numbers of the drugs out there, they have no idea how they work, and yet they've proven they do a specific thing, and they got them approved. Mm-hmm. So if a doctor says, we don't even know how your herb works, they go, we don't even know how most of your drugs work, so leave me alone. And my herbs aren't hurting anybody, your drugs are. So in that category, for example, we have glucosamine and chondroitin. Glucosamine can be glucosamine sulfate. It can be glucosamine hydrochloride. Supplement companies love to argue as to whose is better. The research was originally done on glucosamine sulfate, and glucosamine hydrochloride is much less expensive. And so a lot of people in the area that manufactures the glucosamine sulfate say, oh, the hydrochloride doesn't work as well. What I found is that many, many people in our population, because of a fear of some very healthy foods, are low in sulfur. And if we ran the correct test on them, I could show them they're low in sulfur. And the reason is because the high sulfur-bearing foods that we have include dairy products that a lot of people think are toxic and avoid, eggs that a lot of people think are toxic and avoid, and of course a couple of seasoning agents such as onions and garlic, which some people don't like. So a lot of people end up being low in sulfur. If you're low in sulfur, apparently the glucosamine doesn't work as well. So for the people who are low in sulfur, which is a number of people, the hydrochloride form may not work as well because the glucosamine sulfate has some sulfur in along with it. I would rather tell people I don't care which one you use because I've already taught them to stop being worried about eggs and to eat as many as you want. I eat a dozen or 2 dozen a week. To stop being afraid of dairy, just find grass-fed organic dairy, and if it's available in your state, add the word raw to it, which makes it better yet. And then you have all the sulfur and we don't have to worry about it. But if for some reason you're one of the people that's low in sulfur, then the sulfate form would be better. So we have glucosamine, and the other is chondroitin. The better formulas, in my view, contain both of them. And there are many on the market. I grabbed one off my shelf. So this is NOW's, yep. And it says glucosamine and chondroitin joint support or joint health. And the research studies on glucosamine were done on 1,500 milligrams a day. They have not found that it matters much whether it's taken all at once or spread out. So 1,500 milligrams with breakfast or 500 milligrams with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And the chondroitin studies have mostly been done with 1,200 milligrams. So I like a product that has 1,500 milligrams of glucosamine, 1,200 milligrams of chondroitin in however many capsules it tells you. Be careful that you look at that. Somebody sees that, and then they don't realize that on the top it says 4 capsules contain, or 2 tablets contain, and they're taking 1, and it doesn't work. So make sure you take the amount you're supposed to. And if somebody wants to try a glucosamine chondroitin formula, whether it's NOWs or Schiff or TwinLab or whatever, I say what you want to do is take the proper amount for 30 days in a row with meals. That's when it comes into your body better. And at the end of the 30 days, or maybe before then, if you can say, wow, this is really helping, then stay on it. It's not going to hurt you. It may even help rebuild the joints. If at the end of 30 days you don't notice any difference whatsoever, maybe either your absorption is not as good as it should be, or your need is higher than it should be. So for another 30 days, double the dose. It's not a drug. It's not going to hurt you. Double the dose and do that for 30 days. If at the end of the second 30 days you still say, I don't notice any difference, please stop wasting your money. Stop that supplement. I'm amazed how many people come into my office. They've been taking something for 10 years. And I go, really? And who told you to take that? Oh, this holistic guy said that would be really good for my such and such. Oh, okay. And how is your such and such? Oh, it never improved. And you've been taking it for 5 years? No, you take it for a couple of months. It doesn't do anything. And if it's a preventive, you take it forever. We're trying to prevent something. If it's trying to address a specific condition, then if it's not working, please stop it unless somebody has told you, oh, this takes 6 months to work, then try it for 6 months. So we take it for 30 days at the required dose. We double it for 30 days. It's not working. We drop that one out. So that's one is glucosamine, chondroitin, and I prefer to use them both together. A second one that I've seen a lot of really good results with people with arthritis is hyaluronic acid. And there are many, many brands out there that have different forms of hyaluronic acid and different sizes of the molecule, different Dalton weights and somebody will say, oh, well, ours is a smaller particle. You know, I don't really care. I only care what works. That's the way I practice results-based nutritional medicine. Don't tell me what your research study shows. Tell me, let my patients tell me what's worked. And surprisingly, the one that I get the best results with is made by a company that is on the radio, purityproducts.com. I am not endorsing a single other product they carry or sell. I am only saying that one of their products called Ultimate HA, and HA standing for hyaluronic acid, I have seen massive numbers of dogs, cats, and humans. I should say humans, dogs, and cats, because I don't treat very many dogs and cats, but I have some, where they've seen massive improvements in their joints. And the dose on that, again, is 3 capsules a day. Doesn't seem to matter whether you take 1 3 times a day or 3 once a day. And I would still say the same thing. I would say take it for 30 days. If you don't notice any improvement, double the dose. So if you're taking 3 with breakfast, maybe day 31 through 60, take 3 with breakfast, another 3 with dinner. And if you don't notice any difference, that's not going to work. Now, there's another company that I also like with hyaluronic acid. And I, for whatever reason, can't tell you what it is, I find more people seem to respond to the Ultimate HA from Purity Products. The other is a company called Hyalogic, and they have a little tiny liquid bottle called Synthovial with an S, Synthovial 7. And that would also get taken according to directions. And again, depends on your body. Everybody is different. So we have chondroitin and glucosamine. We've got hyaluronic acid. There's a third product out there which is made up of different essential fatty acid compounds put together in a special way that have anti-inflammatory effects. It's got a sort of peculiar name. It's called 1-TDC. And, you know, I order these things all the time. I never think about the manufacturer's names. EliteScience.net, 1-TDC. And dose on that for most people is it's either 3 capsules or 3 capsules twice a day. I'd have to look it up. I don't have anybody on it right now, so I haven't read the directions recently. But that one, again, according to directions. Again, can't hurt you. I would use the amount it says for 30 days. Don't notice the difference. Try doubling it. And one of my cats was limping recently, and I didn't know whether she'd hurt herself jumping off something too high or whatever. But because I know I can't hurt her, in addition to another one I'm going to give you in a minute called colostrum, I squirted, and she only weighs 8 pounds, and I squirted the contents of 2 of the 1 TDC capsules into her raw meat, and I've been giving her that every day. So when somebody says, "Oh, am I going to hurt myself if I take too high a dose?" I've got my 8-pound cat on almost an adult dose of this. So no, when you're talking about non-toxic things, it's not an issue. But since I'm mentioning cats, be careful with cats because cats are more sensitive to certain substances. And so there are substances out there, alpha lipoic acid is a good example, where if you were just to figure out what the dose was for a cat based on body weight, you could kill your cat. So, I mean, cats are not humans. Yeah. If you're going to treat an animal, pick up a good holistic veterinary book and make sure that you're not hurting them. Yeah. But in many cases, you can put on the same things. Yeah. So 1 TDC is another one. There's a 4th substance. And again, different people will get different results. Somebody will say, this one worked great, and this one didn't do anything, and this one didn't do anything. So we want to give your listeners or viewers, since this is video, a number of things to try. So if they try each one for a full 2 months, and the third one is the one that, oh my, wow, this is terrific. If I only gave the first 2, they wouldn't get there. So we want to make sure I'm doing them in order of the ones that I get the most people getting the results with. So that's the way I would want you to try it.
Okay. Good.
So number 4 is a long name. It's the chemical is acerasomal cis-9 acetylmyristoliate, and the abbreviation that most people use is CM or CMO. CMO, I think, may actually be a registered trademark of one of the companies. But find a company that has CM or CMO. It's acetylmyristoliate. The company that originally made the one that was done in the research study weren't selling enough of it. They've stopped making it. So I can't send you to the one I would want to send you to because it's not being made anymore. But look for a CM or CMO joint product and try that again, regular amount and then double amount. And then we have some things that are really different. So there's a very strong antioxidant called oligomeric proanthocyanidins, which is in a concentrated form in both grapeseed extract, not to be confused with grapefruit seed extract, which is an antibiotic. I'm not talking about that at all. Grapeseed extract and pine bark extract. The original research was done by Jacques Masquelier in France, and the product is called pycnogenol, Pycnogenol. It's a registered trademark in the United States only. In Europe, they're all called pycnogenols, the grapeseed extracts, the pine bark extracts, but the pharmaceutical company got it registered here. So it's not supposed to say pycnogenol on the label unless it has that little circle with the R in it, that's registered trademark, Horfog Pharmaceuticals. And I found that to be really helpful for some small number of people with finger arthritis. I haven't used it on other arthritic issues because one of the others has made so much of a difference, I've never gotten to it. But I've had a number of people that with finger arthritis, where that's the only place they have the pain. If we get them on 2 milligrams per pound of body weight, and sometimes less will work, a lot of people go, wow, that's amazing. And so if somebody weighs 150 pounds, then I would have them try 300 milligrams of pycnogenol. And I'd say do that once a day for 2 weeks. If it doesn't make any difference, I mean, it's helped you, it's good for you. You could take 1 a day if you wanted to, but it's not going to work. That's something you'll see pretty quick. I did that with my dad many years ago. He was having arthritis in his fingers, and I said, let me send you something just to try. He weighed 190 pounds. I had him take 400 milligrams a day. And he called me back on like day 6 or 7. He said, my pain's gone. That's amazing. He said, is it really that? I said, well, stop it for a week, start it for a week, stop it for a week. And he, till the day he died at 89, he kept on using it. So, that's another one. A lot of the companies that sell pycnogenol are lying, misrepresenting. In other words, they're trying to save money because the registered trademark pycnogenol substance is fairly expensive. And so some of the companies, the amount they're putting in is not the amount on the label. I don't know how many of them that is true for, So I'll simply give you a name because I'm not associated with any of these companies. They have nothing to do with me. I'll simply give you a name of one of the ones that I do know, and that's Healthy Origins. So Healthy Origins, I carry their 100 milligram pycnogenol. At least you know you're getting what they say you're getting. So that's a whole bunch of different things that you can do. And any other thing that you might want to try would be specifically an anti-inflammatory. So if somebody says, well, but if these drugs are anti-inflammatories, either steroidal or non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, then might any substance that's a natural, non-toxic substance and has strong anti-inflammatory effect be beneficial? And the answer is yes. And so there are two other strong anti-inflammatories that I like a lot. One of them is astaxanthin, and there are a number of different brands of astaxanthin. The one that I have found works best is the one made by Nutrex in Hawaii, and the product is called astaxanthin. The research studies on astaxanthin are numerous for lots of different things, only one of which is anti-inflammatory. But as an example, I had a patient, I still have a patient, he's still quite alive, who has massive inflammation in his body because for most of his entire life, he was, until he recently retired, a welder at U.S. Steel and Shipbuilding. And he was using welding rods daily that contained chemicals, mostly toxic metals, that are so toxic that they've been outlawed now for a long time, but for most of his life, they weren't outlawed. So he was loaded with cadmium and nickel and all these things that were in the welding rods that he was breathing in the whole time, because you don't wear a breathing mask when you're welding. All you wear is a protective visor for the amount of light. And so he was in massive pain, and we've done all sorts of different things. But what was interesting was that when I introduced the Nutrex astaxanthin at 12 milligrams, he actually called me up 2 days after his appointment. He said, "This stuff's amazing." I said, "Really, Steve? What's going on?" He said, "Well, I don't like drugs. So the drugs that I take that are anti-inflammatory, somebody else would be taking much more than I do because I know they're not good for me. I just want to take the edge off the pain so I can deal with it." He said, "I took that astaxanthin and the pain went down so much I dropped the drugs a lot more." So he could feel the anti-inflammatory effect of that at 12 milligrams. And you have to take a look at the amounts that comes in because some people, they often sell it in 4 milligrams, 8 milligrams. I just buy the 12 milligram capsule. And at the moment, if they haven't stopped, they've got a deal with Costco. And they're selling the 12 milligram capsules of that exact brand that I just went over at Costco for what would be a wholesale price. So you get a great deal. So that's another thing that you could try, and it helps other different things. You can pick up a book called Astaxanthin and read about it. And another really good anti-inflammatory that works in all sorts of different ways is Vitalzyme. Vitalzyme from World Nutrition in Phoenix, and this is the form I use most often. This is a little metal can filled with 360 little itty-bitty teeny-weeny soft gels. Is a great anti-inflammatory, but it is an enzyme. And it brings up the enzyme level in your body to a level closer to what it might have been if you'd never eaten anything cooked in your life, because raw foods have enzymes. And the larger amount of enzymes start coursing through your veins and arteries and breaking down and digesting and eating up stuff that shouldn't be there. And so it is an anti-inflammatory. It's a blood cleanser. It does so many different things, but because it's cleaning things up, if your kidneys or liver aren't in pretty good condition, so I'm now talking about 90% of the public, then when you start cleaning things up and the body has to get rid of those things, they may say, "Oh, I can't take that Vitalzyme. When I take even a low dose of 1 capsule twice a day, I feel awful." The Vitalzyme didn't make you feel awful. Your kidneys and liver's inability to handle the amount of stuff that they now are trying to push through them because it is helping eliminate them is what's doing that. And so you need to get to somebody good and do some kidney and liver support for 2 or 3 months, and then you can go back on Vitalzyme. But Vitalzyme, in order for it not to be wasted on digesting food, because we don't want it to do that. We want it to get into your body, into your arterial system intact. You have to take it on what we call a dead empty stomach. And that means you haven't had any food for at least 2.5 or more hours. And after you swallow your Vitalzyme with some water, you don't have any food for at least 30 or better yet 45 minutes, so the food won't catch it. And so it's going to travel all the way down into your intestines and break apart and get into your bloodstream without wasting itself on food. So like first thing in the morning when you roll out of bed, and then don't eat for 45 minutes, and maybe 2.5 hours after dinner, and don't have any snacks before bed. And the dosing on that varies from person to person, but I always start people on one twice a day, because if their kidneys or liver need help, they will not feel good on one twice a day and have to stop it. And then after that, after they've cleansed those organs out and they can take more, I usually have them slowly go up until they get to maybe 4 twice a day. And do that for the first bottle, big bottle, 360 soft gels, not the little one, and see what kind of benefits you see. And you might find you see benefits in half a dozen areas you weren't even looking for benefits in because of how it helps. So that's a gigantic number of different supplements that do different things in different ways for arthritis.
But just to recap, just to go back to what we kind of talked about before with the diet, you said the majority of the time you follow the 60-day plan, you eliminate foods that, are causing the inflammation, taking the 6 basic supplements. Do you find that the majority of the time that does it? Like, you don't can you kind of give me an idea, like in your experience,
Sure.
Like, do most people, is that sufficient? What percentage of the time does someone need to then go through that next protocol and say, okay, I need to try these different things. I need to kind of take it to the next level.
90+% of the time, the people feel a very noticeable improvement when they do 60 days of eating perfectly. Because of how advanced their arthritis might be, they still have the arthritis there. We have stopped the inflammatory cascade of foods coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And now the amount of if somebody has had arthritis for long enough that they have deformities in their fingers, you can see the deformity in the finger, then just stopping that is not going to make all their pain go away. And it certainly isn't going to help rebuild and see if we can actually get rid of some of the deformities. The doctors, of course, will say that's totally impossible. But I have seen people slowly over a couple of years where, if they measured it, they could say, yeah, my fingers, I can tell that the deformity is less. I can actually move my hand more, but that might have taken quite a while. So yes, massive numbers of people see differences with that. But quite a large number of people would like to see an additional difference and see whether they can get an additional difference. My only issue is that when people take a drug, and in this case we're talking about let's call it a natural drug, because you're still taking something to address a symptom.
Yeah.
It makes you more likely, if you see that particular substance, let's say you get on glucosamine chondroitin, and you can see it really makes an additional difference, that will make you more likely to eat crap you shouldn't be eating, because, that's helping with it. And so now we are progressing your arthritis while reducing your pain. And when I mentioned progressing arthritis, I should do a quick side note here. The research studies published on NSAIDs, on the anti-inflammatory drugs, and I shouldn't just say NSAIDs, because those are the non-prescription ones and non-steroidal ones, all of them, have been very conclusively proven, and your doctor knows this. If you ask your doctor and he or she doesn't know this, that's a real ignorant doctor, because basically the doctors do know this, that the research clearly shows that while the anti-arthritic drugs are greatly reducing your pain, the use of them is accelerating the progression of your arthritis. That has been proven in over and over and over again research studies. So anytime you can do this without the drug, that's a massive improvement, because the drugs accelerate the arthritis while they're making you feel better. Which, yes, okay, you feel better, but it's not a good thing to take something that's making it worse, because that's really, really awful.
Right. In your experience, have you actually seen people completely get rid of their pain, completely overcome their arthritis?
Oh yeah. I've seen it more often on diet than on supplements.
Really?
I've seen people where 3 or 4 months after the first 60 days, and they go, "Wow, this is amazing. I'm just going to stay on this for a while." And they'll come in for maybe their second visit after 4 months, and they'll come in smiling. I don't hurt anywhere in my body.
Wow.
And that was from getting rid of the foods that were doing it. Now, foods are not the only thing that can cause inflammatory effects in the body. And to make things more difficult for our viewers, there are all sorts of chemicals that can do this also. And those include the herbicide Roundup. They include all sorts of pesticides and other herbicides. They include anything that your body eats through your skin or through your lungs. And we don't think about eating things through our skin and through our lungs, but we do, because all these various different substances that I could locate in, for example, the urine test. And okay, so what were you eating that had MTBE in it? You weren't eating anything that had MTBE in it. It was coming into your lungs from the car exhaust. So, all of those different things can do this. And I have people where when we switch them to non-toxic skincare products, so we take a look at their shampoo and their conditioner or cream rinse and their toothpaste and their bar or liquid soaps and their body lotions and face creams and eye serums, and I can point out to them, oh, that particular chemical, ethylene to polyethylene glycol, that you're putting on your skin and that you're eating right through your skin, that's antifreeze. That's in your car, in your radiator. And you've got all these different things, and sodium lauryl sulfate, that's concrete degreaser. So people don't understand that those can also affect this. And I have people, just to give a quick example, I had a person with asthma where they had the money and said, let's run that extensive test you were talking about. She ate super well for 60 days, dropped all of her asthma medications by approximately 50%, felt much, much better, even at the lower dose, and said, let's run that test. I said, we don't need to run the test yet. Your body is going to continue to heal. Let's just keep on staying on it. She said, I know, but wouldn't that make it better if there were some things that I was reacting to? I said, yeah, it would. But the test is like, $1,200, $1,300. And she said, fine, run the test. The test is ELISA Act Biotechnologies. And if somebody wants to go and see what test I'm talking about, the website you want to go to is Better Lab Tests Now. And then you go into the delayed sensitivity testing. And it's got a whole bunch of different panels in that area. So in other words, once you're in the delayed sensitivity testing, this is all that one lab, ELISA Act Biotechnologies. But you could do their all-inclusive test, which is 500 plus substances. You could do any of a number of other tests in there, and hopefully they won't get mad at me if you decide to do that and you put it in your shopping cart and then check out, and it'll let you know what labs in the area you can go to get the test drawn from after they send you the kit. In the promo code in the checkout box, if you put in GETOFF, my last name, Getoff, and the number 15, you get a 15% discount on your test.
Nice.
But we ran the all-inclusive test, which is 500 plus substances, and I have never before and never since seen a result like this woman's test. None of the foods came back reactive. No drugs came back reactive. She came back reactive to polyethylene glycol, sodium lauryl sulfate, methylparaben and propylparaben. So the four substances that basically one or more of them was in everything in her bathroom. So I sent her the results. She calls me up crying on the phone. And she said, I looked at the page that tells me where these things can be found, and I went into the bathroom. She said, what am I supposed to do? It's in my toothpaste. It's in my cream rinse. It's in my body lotion. It's in my shampoo. It's in my liquid soap. What the heck am I supposed to do? I said, when's your next appointment? She said, I'm seeing you in about 3 days. I said, don't worry about it. You've been exposed to those things for 26 years. Another 3 days isn't going to matter. And so she comes in, and all we do is switch her over to the products I already use, because I know those things are bad for everybody. Not allergic bad, not reactive bad, just they're not good for us.
Yeah.
And so I search out the substances that don't have them in it. So we put her on all of those different substances that don't have those chemicals in them. So she got a good shampoo, and she got a good cream rinse, and she got a good body lotion, and a good eye serum, and all these different things without any of those. Her mom calls me up in like a month and says, everybody on the planet should take that test. She said, you have completely changed my daughter's life. She said, this is amazing. Within just a couple of weeks of switching over to substances, to products that don't have those substances in them, she doesn't need any of her medication anymore. Unless she's under unbelievable stress and needs to use a puffer one time, she doesn't need her asthma medication.
Wow.
So how could I have found that out? There's no way I tell people that the better products are better.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd have to be some unbelievable psychic to be able to say
Right.
what's giving you your asthma is actually your shampoo, your toothpaste, your body. They probably would have run out of it thinking I'm an idiot.
So that's such a great point. When we talk about inflammation in the body, diet's huge, but we have to think about all the other toxins that we are potentially exposed to. So do you recommend starting with diet, and then if that person's not really feeling better, then kind of saying, I should explore what other toxins I'm exposed to and take this assessment?
Well, it's very unlikely if they do my super, super strict diet for 60 days that they're not going to notice an improvement in their health. The question is, how much improvement does people want?
Right.
You know that.
Yeah.
My goal is to live to be as much over 100 as I can get with my memory totally intact, with all my faculties, with my balance, with my strength, with everything else.
Yeah.
And I don't at all mind if what I'm eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner tastes delicious, but doesn't contain certain other things that would also taste delicious that I know are bad for me.
Right.
And so people get to decide how many things they're going to eliminate. That's totally up to them.
Right.
But certainly the more things you can pull out of your lifestyle, the more you're going to help possibly what you've got. We don't know. You don't know that until you pull them out and you see if they make it better.
Mm-hmm.
But you're certainly going to help reduce your risk of every single immune, autoimmune, and neurological condition that you might get in the future. You're going to reduce all those risks.
Right.
If you still get them, it's going to be much more years further. It won't be as bad. So everything you can do is always worthwhile.
I use the analogy a lot with my clients of like wearing a backpack and water over your head. And I say to them, I'm here to help you take out some stones. I'm here to help you take some heavier ones and replace them with lighter ones. But you get to decide. I'm not going to tell you. You get to decide which ones come out. And that's a very empowering position to put someone in, because they sort of feel like, I own this. Like, this is my choice. And I find people get far better results when they feel like they're in the driver's seat, as opposed to someone just telling them, like, this is what I should do. Like, you got to own it, and you got to want to do it.
And the drug person, the person that really just wants to get rid of the symptom, is going to say, can't you just give me a regulator off a scuba tank and let me sit down here?
Right, exactly. Let's just talk briefly about wireless technology. You and I have actually talked about this before in other interviews that we've done for the BB50 podcast, and how that can contribute to inflammation. So can you just talk a little bit more about this?
Absolutely. And that's the area that nobody is talking about. Mm-hmm. I know we said that last time. Nobody is talking about that. Mm-hmm. So again, what we're discussing is a condition that every doctor, let's even go to the doctors who don't know most of what we're talking about. Let's go to the doctors. Every doctor will say that your condition is related to inflammation. Therefore, anything that we can do that will in any way reduce inflammatory effects being perpetrated on your body, whether it's being perpetrated by a substance you're eating or a substance that's going into your skin or your shampoo, anything that is inflammatory to your body that we can reduce will be helpful, and may be helpful enough that you can see the difference in pain. That goes without saying. A lot of times something is good for you and you can't tell the difference, but it's still good for you. So wireless technologies have now been shown to be very inflammatory. And we know this. There is no question about that. They can be proven with thermography, with brain scans, with SPECT scans to actually inflame your brain. And so if they can inflame your brain, which happens to be a very sensitive part of your body, that's just because it's so much more sensitive. You can see it there easier. It inflames everything. So is it possible that reducing your exposure to wireless technologies would allow your body to get a better result, to heal more, and in some cases, if you're really sensitive, even feel the reduction in pain by doing that? Yes, absolutely. And if you want to try that, you get to just say, okay, what are all the wireless technologies that I'm exposed to? And if you asked a bunch of people when you hurt the most, a lot of people, because your joints haven't been moving, they've been sitting in one place, a lot of people will say, I hurt the most when I wake up in the morning. That after I get moving and going around and everything, I feel a little bit better, but when I've just been staying in one place, I hurt the most. So a fair number of people, I don't know what the percentage is, are in the most pain trying to get out of bed. And after they start moving around, they're better off. So those people might notice a difference if during the time they're asleep, the body isn't inflamed every second of every minute of every hour. And the reason that it is inflamed varies from foods to things you put on your skin to your soaps to wireless technologies. And I find it interesting that people are not looking at the research studies. I've got some of them up on my website, but they're everywhere. Zapped is a good book by Anne-Louise Gittleman, but there are a lot of good books out there. And so people don't realize that when you are laying down and asleep, and so theoretically, this should be the time of your life when your body is totally relaxed and is going through a massive regenerative process. If it's massively being inflamed, it is not relaxed, it is inflamed. It is not totally regenerating, it is inflamed. And if we can reduce that inflammation, then all the things that are supposed to happen will happen better. So, all the things that your wireless technologies are doing for you during the day, unless you're sleepwalking, you don't need them when you're asleep. So if you will disconnect your Wi-Fi or unplug it or turn it off or however you want to do it, and if you will unplug the base station of your cordless telephone, I mean, I don't have Wi-Fi. There's no Wi-Fi in my house. There are no cordless phones in my house, and I don't use a cell phone. But if you have them, you disconnect the base station. If you want to know which is the base station, that's the one that, in addition to being plugged in to power, is also plugged into your phone line. That's the one you want to disconnect because that's the transmitter that's sending signals all over the house. You disconnect the base station of your cordless phone, and you turn off or disconnect your Wi-Fi. And if you don't turn your cell phone off, or even if it is off, actually, it needs to be a couple rooms away from your bedroom because cell phones are no longer turned off. That's no longer the case. The old phones, when they were off, they were off. Nobody could ever do anything with them. The new ones, you think they're off because the battery is barely being drained at all, and you can't tell. But they could be remotely turned on by the government, by the police. They're still receiving GPS so they can know where you are if something happens. So they're not really off. The only way that you can stop that would be to take the battery out, and the batteries are not accessible anymore. You can get pretty close to it by putting it into airplane mode because that was designed through the government's TSA to make sure that it can't transmit or receive anything. So if you are charging your cell phone, have it in airplane mode while you're charging your cell phone. It's only a rock, otherwise you can't receive any calls on it, but that's the only way that it's really good. So it's either turned off 2 or 3 rooms away at the other side of the house charging, or if the charger just happens to be in your bedroom and you don't have enough energy to unplug it and put it in another room, then turn it on to airplane mode while it's charging. So we've just gotten rid of the 3 wireless technologies that you have control over. Yeah. Your Wi-Fi, your cordless phones, and your cell phone. Now, these days, those are not the only wireless in some people's houses. A lot of people have an additional wireless setup for their TV. You'd have to turn that off. Yeah. So that's totally up to you. Yeah. Before I moved into this house, I told the contractor, I said, look, I want a computer connection in this room on this wall, and in that room on that wall, and upstairs in this wall. And he looked at me like I was an idiot. And he said, David, this is the 21st century. You're going to have something called a Wi-Fi in your attic, and you can have your computers anywhere you want. And I said, Steve, remember the work you did for me in our other house? He said, oh, that's right. I forgot. You don't do wireless. Okay, tell me again where you want these connections. And we put in a modem and a router. I turned off the wireless feature because if you don't turn it off, even if you're not using it, it's still there. Yeah. So I turned off the wireless feature so anybody in my house would not have seen a Wi-Fi. It's not there when you look for it. And then they wired the actual hard wires to each location. And if I wanted to be able to plug a telephone into a couple other rooms, I had them add telephone jacks in. And yeah, some people think, I'm a dinosaur. If I'm in my office and I realize that I have to go into the kitchen and stir, my bone broth, or my stew, and I say, hold on just a second, I'll pick you up in the kitchen, and I hit the hold button on my phone, hang up the phone, go into the kitchen, pick up the phone, press it, and I say, I just had to go into the kitchen, I'm stirring something. And they go, why don't you just use a cordless phone or use your cell phone? I go, that's a half an hour lecture if you've got time.
I knew about that because you and I have talked about that before. I wanted to ask you. You just made me think of this. What are your thoughts about the Himalayan sea salt lamps? Like that's supposed to reduce. I mean, are those truly effective?
Well, the Himalayan salt lamps, what they're doing is that they found that as long as you've got a light in there going through it,
Yeah.
You're generating a small amount of what are called negative ions,
Yeah.
which is basically electrons. Yes, they do generate negative ions. I mean, that's been validated. The problem is the amount of negative ions they generate is really, really low. So whether somebody will notice a benefit from it or not, I have no idea. It certainly isn't going to hurt you unless you get one of the ones made in China that was incorrectly made and it burns your house down because none of them are UL approved because they're made so poorly. They, is somebody making it in their home and throwing a light in it. But if somebody wants to try negative ions to see whether they work for you, I recommend that you instead buy a unit made by Wein Products, W-E-I-N Products. Their website, I think, is either wein.com or weinproducts.com. But in support of their dealers, they don't sell on their website. But I think they have links to some of the web companies that do sell. And there's a little unit that sits on your desk with what looks like a stainless steel brush. So instead of having one little antenna, it's got thousands of little antennas because it looks like a stainless steel brush. It's the only product I know that sends out billions and billions of negative ions. It really does its job correctly. But if you don't have a ceiling fan on low so that the air is moving in your room or another little fan sort of blowing across it, you will get a concentration of negative ions right around the unit. Surfaces like your wall is positively charged. You are charging the particles in your air with negative ions. Opposites attract. And over a period of anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months, you will now have a black wall as all the stuff you would have been breathing is going into the wall. So I tell people, if you don't want the black wall effect, and you can probably just look up black wall effect negative ions, you want to make sure that there's air movement in the room so that the negative ions are being dispersed in the entire room. But the Wein Products unit puts out a lot of negative ions. Most of the others put out very, very little. And I do actually have people both with emotional issues, anxiety issues, depression, seasonal affective disorder called SAD, which is interesting because that's also the acronym for Standard American Diet, which is also SAD. And asthmatics. I have a number of asthmatics where having a Wein unit in their bedroom actually improves either the way they feel or their breathing or whatever. Other people, it's good for you, but you don't notice it.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know. I'll have to explore that. Any final thoughts, tips that you want to share as we come to a close here?
Just that those people that are currently thinking, I'll have to think about the diet, but let me try the glucosamine chondroitin.
Right.
If that doesn't work, let me try the hyaluronic acid. If that doesn't work, let me try the 1-TDC. I implore you, don't disconnect the idiot light. Even if you're disconnecting it with a non-toxic substance instead of a drug, leave the symptom there. It is telling you you have a problem, and see whether or not making your diet much cleaner will actually be addressing the problems. And if you do that and you go, wow, this is amazing, but damn, David's diet had me cut out 12 things or 14 things I normally eat. How about if only 2 of them were doing it? That's when you do the re-challenge. Mm-hmm. So when you feel much, much better, you go, okay, let me make a list of all the things that I miss the most. And one person says they miss the most their fresh piece of fruit in the morning. And then the next most missed thing is their piece of multigrain organic sprouted bread and butter. And the next thing they miss most is their Snickers bar. And the next thing they miss most is their glass of organic red wine. So make your list in order and bring in one of the things, one at a time, one of the things that you miss the most, and have that daily, once or twice a day, for 4 or 5 days in a row. And if after 4 or 5 days in a row you don't notice any return of your symptoms, leave it there, because you will most likely notice something within 5 days. You can just do it a week instead, once a week, and bring in the next thing you miss the most. And when you get to the ones that were really part of it, within that week or 5 days, you'll go, oh, okay, that was one of them. Let's pull that back out again. I like the way I felt better.
Yeah.
And mark an X next to that one
Yeah.
and keep going. And this will help you identify so you don't have to leave out everything that you pulled out. And just remember that there are two issues with the foods we pulled out. Sabotage foods can either be reactive because they're causing part of your issue, or they can be harmful because they dysregulate your sugar level. So if you bring back a substance which doesn't cause your pain to come back, I still cut it out because it wasn't good for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not be part of your issue, and so you may say, I'm going to have this once a week or twice a week because it doesn't make me feel worse, but it's still causing something else that isn't good long term, just so you know that.
You know, it's interesting because everything that you've described, I mean, I've gone through personally, and the diet you have on your website is pretty much how I eat 100% of the time. And it's taken me a few years to get here, but I remember like my three foods that I thought I could never not have were chocolate, wine, and pizza. And I do not eat any of them to this day. I might have raw, like unsweetened chocolate, but I will not do like store-bought chocolates. And it's funny because I had to get my body to a place where it was so healthy and clean again that I had such a negative reaction to those foods that I associated feeling sick. Like I didn't get the same pleasurable effects that I thought I once got years ago because my body was so imbalanced that it was just sort of those few minutes of pleasure that I thought I had just from the taste buds. But you start to make that connection, it's so clear that you will naturally have an aversion. You won't want them.
No, after you realize every time I eat that, I'm going to feel like crap tomorrow.
Well,
and maybe not just tomorrow, maybe for the next week.
Well, the last time I had wine was 7 years ago. I remember vividly, my fiance and I were visiting his grandparents, and I hadn't had wine in a year. And I had literally 3 ounces maybe. It was organic wine, so I thought, okay, less pesticides. I had a hangover for 24 hours after. I was like,
your idiot light went off.
Oh yeah, and that was the last time I was done. I said, this is not worth it for me to have 3 ounces of wine to feel sick for 24 hours. Who wants to lose 24 hours just for that little bit? I was like, I'm done.
Yep, that was your buzzer. That was your buzzer saying, beep, 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 this is not a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So
the two chocolates that for people that say, okay, if I'm going to have chocolate, David, is there a better chocolate?
Yeah.
The two better chocolates would be any of the dark chocolates from Coco Polo, COCOPOLO, Coco Polo chocolates, because they are sweetened with stevia and non-GMO erythritol.
Oh.
And another one, which is much more expensive and slightly even better in some ways, but much more expensive, is GenesisChocolate.com. They don't use any erythritol either. They use Yacon and raw chocolate, which makes their product about 3 times more expensive, but they're both great. I sell a lot of Coco Polo chocolates. Genesis chocolate, people don't want to spend that much money, so I don't carry that one. But those are the better ways. Coco, COCOPOLO, Coco Polo.
Coco Polo, okay.
And they're dark chocolates, any of their dark chocolates, except the tart cherry, because that has sugar that was in the cherries. All the other dark chocolates they have no problems in them. So there are ways to bring those things in.
Yeah.
But with wine, like you said, you had an organic wine. I mean, you did the best you could, and your body was still saying, we don't like this. No. And it could have been the alcohol. It could have been the naturally occurring sulfites. Whatever it was, your body said, hello, don't do that, please.
Yeah, awful. Well, David, if someone is interested in learning more about you, maybe they want to work with you, maybe they want to check out your programs. I don't know if you have it up yet. I know you're going to have some new programs available on your website. Where do they go?
The easiest thing is to just go to my website. If you put in David Getoff, and if you spell David correct and Getoff just like get off, don't misspell anything. DavidGetoff.com will redirect you to the website, which is Naturopath for You. And there's a button that says Initial Consultation. That'll answer all of your questions if you want to work with me. Otherwise, if you're just there for information, there's nothing for sale on my website. It's all free information. And you can go to the important video section and get lost educating yourself on all sorts of different topics. You can go to the MP3 recording section and get lost listening to all sorts of topics, whatever you want to do. And if you hit the big green subscribe button on the top right, then I will alert you to what you're just talking about, and that is that Uscreen TV, which is a company that does streaming videos. I have been working, and I'm hoping that I'll have it done by the middle of May. That all of the videos that I've been selling for years, and they vary in price from $30 to $80, will be available for people to, instead of having to buy a video, maybe somebody doesn't want to spend $75 to watch my 3-hour cancer video. Maybe they'd rather spend $12 and just watch it once.
Right.
You don't want to own it.
Right.
You know, we don't own the movies. You go to the movies. You spend $10, $12 in the movie. You don't then have to spend $24.95 and own the DVD.
Right.
So they're all going to go up there, so you can do that, or you can subscribe and have access to lots of them. And then I decided, even though it's going to cost a lot more, to put my courses up there.
Mm-hmm.
So my 10-week, 30-hour course in attaining optimal health, it goes over everything. That'll be up there. My 6-week supplements course, that's 18 hours totally on nutritional supplements. That's going to be up there. A 2-day detoxification seminar that I've taught twice. Once as a pre-conference workshop to medical doctors, and once recently at a fitness center in Dallas. Those are all going to be up there. Those are going to be a lot more expensive, but those are things people don't have access to otherwise.
Right.
So that will all be there. I don't send emails out to all sorts of people. You know, you're not going to get something from me once a week saying, do this, do that, buy this, buy that. You may not hear from me twice a year, but when that video site is up, I will email everybody that has subscribed to say, hey, guys and girls, the video site is finally up. You can go take a look at it if you want to.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, David.
You are very, very welcome. There's nothing I like more than educating people.
Thank you.